I watched my husband with his blood, sweat, and tears deliver that youth vote. I would really just like to enjoy that hard work paid off.
Yeah. He loved all the takes I'd give him, where I'm like, yeah, you know, Christian marriage is in the Bible, but it's also this like secret weapon that made the West great.
That is Blake Neff describing texts from 10 minutes before Charlie Kirk's death. Almost everybody around Charlie has a quote like that. A last text or last call. His producer has one. Marco Rubio has one. The president has one. So at some point, I asked a pretty simple question. What is Erika's? The answer up front is that there isn't one. She has never told it. So I lined that up against everybody else's stories. Here they are, back to back.
Blake and I were exchanging texts with Charlie about, I'm going to say like 25, 30 minutes before it happened. And we were talking about, you know, because he was in Utah. We were predicting that there was going to be some questions about maybe monogamy versus polygamy. And I looked at that again, that text exchange, and Blake likes to call it, you know, really advanced societal technology, monogamy. And we were putting all these talking points, and Charlie was like, yes, good. And it's interesting because what you're talking about is there is this thing where you love one woman, and she loves you, and you're faithful to each other.
The last message that Charlie sent me was, I think it was just the day before we lost him, which is that we need to have an organized strategy to go after the left-wing organizations that are promoting violence in this country. And I will write those words onto my heart, and I will carry them out.
His incredible knowledge. Let me tell you that one of the last messages I had with him was just a few days before his passing, where he wrote me from overseas, I'm in South Korea, I have many concerns I want to share with you when I get back. He was constantly expanding his horizons, but he just didn't have knowledge. He had wisdom.
He was an all-American in everything he did, and one of the last things he said to me is, please, sir, save Chicago. We're going to do that. We're going to save Chicago from horrible crime.
Did he text you after the interview anything?
No, the last text that I received from Charlie was inviting me to speak at, I mean, I can pull it up. It was literally inviting me to speak at AmFest.
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And he said, great, we'll plan it. That was the last text that I received from Charlie.
I owed Charlie a text because unlike Charlie, I was not diligent or fastidious about these things. He was just unbelievably good at constantly being in touch with people. So I owed him a text a few days prior. But I thought, well, whatever, I'm going to see him. I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks because he and I were scheduled to speak together at the University of Minneapolis, or as he called it, Mogadishu, in 12 days after it happened. And so it happens. And then, you know, you're in a fog, and then you're getting the news. And
in a conversation with Charlie in the green room in Korea, he said something to me that he'd said a number of times. He said, he kept calling me his pastor, and I stopped him. I said, Charlie, since the president's gotten elected, your stock has risen through the stratosphere, and I don't see much of you. I mean, he wasn't a very good congregant. He was on the road 320 days a year. But he said, Rob, not only are you my pastor, but you're America's pastor. And I said, Charlie, if we were at a tabling event on a campus where you had the table said, prove me wrong, I'd win. And he looked at me with that sheepish grin that he always has.
In fact, when we were coming in together, Charlie got video on his phone, drone video, from about an hour before we were supposed to start. And he goes, wow, look at the crowd already. And I said, Charlie, I don't like this place. It has too many buildings.
Wow, you said that to him?
And he just kind of shrugged it off because he was brave and he wasn't going to cancel the event. You know, the security's there.
And then on my last text from him was on the 1st of September saying, can you send me a lecture on natural law? And God help me, I never got back to him. It was a busy week, and I thought, I've got to sit down and do this properly. And then, you know, by the time things had calmed down, it had happened.
I counted 10 people with a story like this on the record, and I'm probably still missing some. This is what people around a death do. They tell you the last thing. It comes out on podcasts, at memorials, in car stories. Nobody has to ask twice. Well, almost. I went through everything she has said since September that I'm aware of, the speeches, the interviews, the podcasts, the episodes of Charlie's show. I searched every phrasing I could think of. Last call, last text, last time we spoke, FaceTime, voicemail, goodbye. For everybody you just heard, those searches work. For Erika, across 10 months of her speaking, they come back empty. There is no telling anywhere I can find of a last conversation with Charlie. The closest thing on the record is this.
Gigi and I stayed in our room, and that morning he woke up super early and he came into our bedroom, into the bathroom, because that's where his wedding ring was and his necklace. And he came in and he grabbed that, and then he left. I didn't even get to give him a kiss goodbye.
That is a description of a conversation that did not happen. Her account of that morning is about not seeing him. There is one more piece of that morning, and it's in print. She told the New York Times that since she didn't get that kiss, she texted him, "I love you," before his plane took off. So we have the last thing she ever said to him. What we do not have is the last thing that he ever said to her. And no reply to that text is mentioned. Not in the article, not on a stage, not anywhere since. Her side of the goodbye is on the record. His side is nowhere in it. That leaves her as the one person in Charlie's orbit whose last contact story is missing. And it stays missing all the way through today. The newest speech we have covers everything from his journals to grief advice, and this is still not in it. There is exactly one exception in 10 months. It happened on Megyn Kelly's show in November of 2025.
It was, interestingly enough, one of the last few conversations we had was how intentional he was about supporting JD for 28.
Yeah, he was totally behind JD.
The one time a lost conversation shows up, it has a job. It's not a memory offered on its own. It arrives as the sourcing for a political endorsement. It has no date attached. It has no content beyond the endorsement itself. What happened to that endorsement afterwards says plenty. At the DealBook Summit about a week and a half later, she is asked directly whether Vance is the person she plans to support for 2028.
JD Vance.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the person you plan to ultimately support for 2028?
He's a dear friend. My husband and him were very good friends. I think you remember when he supported him for Senate, and they had a great time doing that race together, and he supported JD for that. I do have to say, yes, I mean, we adore JD, and my husband was very vocal about endorsing him, but
That's a yes, but barely. And that answer belongs to her husband.
Endorsing him, but I do have to preface this from the standpoint of, we have a tendency as humans to look past, we have very short attention spans and very short memories. I would ask that we enjoy the fact that, maybe you don't, but I will enjoy the fact that my husband worked so hard for this past election, and I think it would behoove us to appreciate that hard work and enjoy the fact that we do have a president in office that we voted for.
In mid-December, at her town hall with Bari Weiss, the same question gets a yes that immediately goes on hold.
Part of it with us.
Charlie expressed support for JD Vance in 28 before he died.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how about you?
Well, yes. I mean, I'm following in my husband's footsteps to a lot of extent. But again, I will express the sentiment very clearly. I watched my husband with his blood, sweat, and tears deliver that youth vote for President Trump, and I am just, let me please just bask in that and enjoy that before we start jumping to 28. I would really just like to enjoy that hard work paid off.
Then at AmericaFest, TPUSA's own convention, it becomes a full commitment from the stage.
We are going to get my husband's friend, JD Vance, elected for 48 in the most resounding way possible.
So even the exception is not stable. The answer changes depending on the room. If the last conversation happened over text, it lives in exactly two places, her phone and his phone. Let's start with hers.
This is a new phone and a new phone number. The other phone and phone number is a black hole.
When everything happened, my phone died and became a black hole. I just didn't turn it on for weeks on end. I've intentionally insulated myself because I need to guard my heart, and I need to be there for my kids, and I need to be there for Turning Point. And what I've realized through all of this is that everyone grieves differently.
You said you have no idea what you have just unleashed. What did you mean by that?
Let me give you a little background of that day. We get home. The team goes to dinner. I'm laying in my daughter's bed, and I can't sleep. It took me months to even walk into my bedroom. I'm laying in my daughter's bed. I can't sleep. I grab my phone, and I start typing out it. And those are my words.
So, on her own phone, the story splits. In one telling, it died and stayed off for weeks. In another, she's typing her public statement on it the morning they told her they got the guy. I don't know which is true, but both can't be the whole story. And either way, the number Charlie would have texted is
a black hole.
That covers her phone. His phone is a different story, and she has never told it. The closest thing we have is secondhand. Candace Owens says Erika had to go through Charlie's text messages to learn what he was afraid of. If it's true, it means that she has his phone and she has read his messages. And a last conversation has still never come out of either device. Maybe the last thing they said to each other was private for whatever reason. The problem with private is her own record. This is the woman who wore a microphone leaning into Charlie's open casket for her Instagram story.
I love you. I love you.
She narrates the journals, the ring story, the necklace, and where it came from. He said at dinner, nothing has been too private to post. One category never gets told, and it's this one. She does talk about a last conversation these days, but not one with Charlie.
And I unfortunately cannot explain why we suffer. I wish I had a better explanation. I just don't. I will have a very long conversation with God once I get up there. Very long conversation.
That conversation has not happened. She talks about it like it's already booked, destination included. Whether it goes the way she's planning is not my department. If she ever tells the story of her last conversation with Charlie, this video will get an update. Until then, there are 10 of these stories on the record, and hers is not one of them.
What's going on, bro? No glasses?
I'm laying in my daughter's bed. I can't sleep. I grab my phone and I start typing out it. And those are my words. That morning, the team reached out to me and said, they think they got the guy. You should probably say thank you to the authorities and just make a statement. I said, okay. I wasn't afraid. They said, let's go to the office and let's discuss. We're at the office and they say, do you want to go live? Or we can easily, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. We can easily pre-record this. I said, absolutely not. My husband always went live. I have nothing to hide. We're fully transparent. What you see is what you get. If I start breaking down on live TV, I break down on live TV. My husband was assassinated. He didn't die in a car accident. Now, what we're doing, there's a lot of things. It's funny because some people think, oh, when a CEO comes in, things go crazy. They have to change. They don't have to change. If it's not broken, you don't have to fix it. Charlie intentionally picked phenomenal leaders in the organization, and we're in good hands. And everyone is very mission focused. And when it comes to the students and elections and getting ready to vote, we're still going to do what Charlie did. We're still going to be on campus. We're still going to be encouraging you guys. We're still going to be a resource for you. And so, yes, midterms, they might get a little messy, but we're ready for it, and we're mission-driven for it. And I hope that you'll be a part of it with us. Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
Book. I need water. What do you want? I'm like in the box under there.